If you're like me, you've noticed everything has gotten more expensive lately. From groceries to gas, it just takes more to get by, and it's even more pronounced when you're looking at new cars. I mean, the average transaction price is now knocking on the $50,000 mark. For the most basic transportation, you can get something like the Kia Rio or Nissan Versa for around $18,000. But for just a little more in the $20,000 range, you can get something significantly nicer, which is what we have here, the 2023 Kia Forte. Before we jump into this review, do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons below to get all of our latest content. This third generation Kia Forte was last redesigned in 2019. It retains some of the older Kia design themes with this double tab grille, but also merges with the current styling that has these converging angles that move towards the center. This is the top GT model that represents the sporty side of the lineup and features some racy red exterior accents. The profile of the Forte is fairly plain, but the proportions and overall shape are more graceful than some other sedans in the class. I'm not sold on these red center caps in the wheels, but they don't bother me enough to really put that much of a fuss up. Here in the back, we have more red accents under the bumper that kind of remind me of a bright splash of lipstick. Again, it's not really my cup of tea, especially since you can't get the GT trims without these red accents. But what do you think? Are they a hit or a miss for you? Let us know in the comments below. The Kia Forte is available with the choice of two engines. The base powertrain has a 2-liter 4-cylinder that makes 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque. It's paired with a continuously variable transmission that drives the front wheels. Altogether, that's good enough to accelerate the Forte to 60 miles an hour in 8.7 seconds, which is about average for the class. Now, this GT gets a 1.6-liter turbo that increases output to 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It comes with either a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, or in this case, a 6-speed manual. It's noticeably more powerful and quicker than the base powertrain, reaching 60 miles an hour in only 6.5 seconds. Personally, I'm more into sporty cars, so my choice would be the turbo with the manual. But what would you do? Would you get the turbo with the dual-clutch automatic instead, or go with the base engine with the CVT? Now, as the sporty choice in the lineup, this GT also comes with a sport-tuned suspension. So how does this all come together on the road? Let's find out. The clutch in this Forte GT is really light, maybe too light for a sporty car. But that's actually a good thing if you're stuck in traffic. That way it doesn't feel like you're doing half a leg day when you're stuck in dense congestion. The clutch engagement is easy and predictable for smooth getaways, and acceleration is more than adequate. You won't really need to floor it when you're merging onto the highways. I do feel some torque steer when you're really driving hard, and that's when the front wheels get an uneven amount of power and try to pull the nose left or right. But you really only feel it when you floor the pedal. The engine is fairly quiet and has a subtle baritone. The shifter, well, that's easy to throw into whatever gear you want, and the gear ratios do a good job of keeping power on tap. I personally love stick shifts for the driver engagement, but realize that there are plenty of drivers who prefer an automatic. The dual clutch automatic transmission for this GT can be rather clunky and unrefined though. By comparison, the base powertrain in the Forte is somewhat lifeless, since the CVT tends to push you into higher gear ratios to save on fuel. Now, as I'm slicing through these turns, the Forte is surprisingly buttoned down. It's cornering with confidence, and there's no hint of tire squeal even when I push harder. This GT is capable of sporty handling, but it doesn't really encourage it, and I put that mostly down to its steering. While it's accurate, there's not much effort and almost no steering feel. It feels disconnected, and that's not what you want when you're looking to have fun behind the wheel. Sport mode doesn't change things much. Maybe it sharpens response a little and loads up the steering, but it's pretty subtle. The ride quality is pleasantly comfortable, and the suspension does a good job of smoothing over bumps in the road. I do hear some road noise, but it's not so loud that I feel like I have to raise my voice to have a conversation. If you want adaptive cruise control though, you will have to go with the automatic transmission. This Forte does have lane keep assist, but it feels like it's constantly tugging at the wheel and it gets pretty tiresome quickly. Overall, this Forte GT is enjoyable to drive and has just enough pep to have some fun. So with that out of the way, let's find a spot and talk about the interior. The interior of the Forte is somewhat austere, but in a classy way. It's understated with just a hint of sport with these round kind of turbine air vents. In some ways, it sort of reminds me of an Audi from about a decade ago. The GT adds a little flair with some red stitching and embroidered GT logos in the seatbacks. The center of the dash features a sharp infotainment screen that's right in the driver's sightline to reduce distraction. Underneath are some simple climate controls that you can use without even having to take your eyes off the road. And just below that is a rubberized tray with a wireless charging pad. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard. You also have another handy rubberized tray right below it, as well as some moderately sized cup holders and this center armrest bin. The door pockets are also slightly small, but you'll have plenty of spaces for your personal items. Maybe they're just not as large or as convenient as you'd get with other vehicles. Materials quality is about average for the class, with this hard plastic center console kind of being an outlier. Almost every surface is covered in a light upholstery or well padded. I especially like the synthetic leather upholstery on the seats. They're more substantial than the kind of thin vinyl that you get in a Toyota Corolla. And even on a hot day like this, they breathe pretty well. Genuine leather upholstery is available as an option, as is seat ventilation and a premium audio system. Here in the back seat, as you can see, there's plenty of space for a 5'10" passenger, even behind the driver's seat that is set for me. I have plenty of knee room and space under the seat for my feet, and just a few inches above my head, so yeah, I'd be fine back here. Materials quality is what you'd expect. The seats are still nice, but you get harder plastics in the door. I do like that we have air vents here, as well as a single USB-A charge port. The Kia Forte can hold up to 15.3 cubic feet of cargo in its trunk, and it's also notable for the incredible depth that it has. Now, you can cram just a little bit more than you can into a Honda Civic or Mazda 3 sedan, but it's worth noting that those hatchback versions can hold between 20 and 24 cubic feet. The cargo floor has this kind of cheap, flimsy covering that makes it look just a little down market, but I am really glad that at least we have these remote seat back releases for when you need more space. Pricing for the Kia Forte starts just under $21,000. This top GT costs just over $26,000 for the manual, but the automatic will save you about $1,000. It undercuts the comparable Mazda 3 and Honda Civic by a few $1,000s here or there, and you also get a couple extra features. In terms of performance, the GT is close to the Honda Civic Si that costs around $3,000 more. I personally prefer the Civic's driving dynamics, but is it worth the extra money? Well, that's really for you to decide. If you're looking for the ultimate in compact sportiness, the Honda Civic Type R and Toyota GR Corolla will set you back $10,000 to $15,000 more. Within the more accessible price range, the Mazda 3 is the best pick for spirited drivers, and it's one of the few that offer all-wheel drive. The most fuel-efficient Forte is estimated to return 34 mpg in combined city and highway driving. The other base engines drop slightly to 32 mpg. Now, opting for the turbocharged GT should return 30 mpg with the dual clutch automatic, or 26 mpg for the manual. For the most part, these estimates are right in line with the Civic, Mazda 3, and Toyota Corolla. Among these, the Kia Forte gains an advantage in value. The Civic is the all-around leader of the class in my book, though. And if I were to pick any of these, it'd be the Mazda 3 for its more luxurious interior, beautiful styling, and potent performance. The problem is, the price could be a deal breaker for the budget conscious. For those shoppers, the Kia Forte should be at the top of your list. I'd also consider waiting though. That's because Kia unveiled the new K3 sedan, which is what the Forte is called in other markets. It's not officially coming to the US yet, but I'd be shocked if it doesn't make it here by at least the 2025 model year. With edgy styling that reminds me of the EV9, it might be worth the wait. But what would you do? Wait for the K3 or jump into the Forte, Civic, Mazda 3, or Corolla? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. We'll see you on the next review.